In part 1 of this video series of 2, we talked about the different kind of schools of meditation in China. The Buddhist, the Confucian and the Taoist schools. And today we're going to go a little bit deeper into the golden flower technique. And I'm going to introduce to you the first chapter from the sequence that I'm currently busy translating. And the golden flower technique as a whole is focused on the development of what is then called, of course, the golden flower. And the golden flower is in fact the lower Dantian to start with, but this is not where it stops. This is just where the beginning is, and the gold is then the red golden light of the lower Dantian that has to be developed by means of all kinds of circulations, breath exercises, meditations and so forth and so forth. So as a result of that, you will be able to learn a lot from this text alone, and then from other texts also similarly like that. You will be able to learn more. So hook into the cycle and join the channel to make sure that you stay in the loop on these videos, or otherwise just join my Patreon. Keep yourself informed through the Keep yourself informed through the free posts, and better even, of course, support the program, the translation program, through the Sifu Guide, or just become a member of the Patreon. So I think it is a good idea now to start listening and reading the text of the mysterious Lord of the Primordial Gods, discrimination of gold, tiger, lead and mercury in making cauldrons and entering the secret true elbow formula. This is the first part. The metal tiger and lead mercury are not outside of the five Xing. All things are generated because of the intertwining of yang and the arising of yin. Yin is the foundation of the Tao, and yang is the beginning of fullness. Yang cannot stand alone, and yin cannot generate itself. All people and all kinds of beings are endowed with one qi. The systems of judgment after the separation of Handun chaos is based on the establishment of the foundation and the bending and stretching of form and movement, returning to its origin through the creation of parents, each returning to its root and changing. When the three yangs contend, the laws and images are established. Kan, or water, is one, Li, fire, is two, returning from yin to yang. Two is one, water is two, returning from yang to yin. Water is two, fire is one. The former is the image, the latter is the cloud, like the true source of cultivating Tao within the body. The profound meaning is subtle, secretly corresponding to the truth, and also metaphorically representing the two yin of lead and mercury, the two of water. Fire's nature is to rise upward, residing in its own direction, also being one of two. Between heaven and earth, they correspond to the five Xing. In the human body, it is the fire storage. Below the lungs, its number is 1. The kidney is the water storage, residing in the life palace. Its number is 2. The feet clearly show fire, 1, and water, 2. The ancestor of Tao, those who cultivate enlightenment will find immortality attainable. The mysterious pearl roams freely in the red water, its embryo forming a fetus. The three elixirs also arise from the mysterious one, arising from yang and becoming flowing pearls. This is sufficient to understand the essence of heaven and earth, the ultimate Jing refinement, capable of flowering in an instant. For example, those who cultivate internally attain the one, seeing the elixir's qi which sustains life. Those who cultivate externally attain the one, the yang elixir, which when ingested strengthens life internally and transforms the five metals externally. Thus cultivation is not dualistic, reaching the pinnacle of perfection, uniting heaven and man in the Tao, aligning with nature. Nothing can be born without yin, nothing can be two without yang. The union of the elixir, not originating from water, fire, metal, wood and earth, is still the correspondence of the three, and the elixir is naturally formed. The foundation of the elixir is one, but one must distinguish true lead and true mercury. The yin and true yang are the great Tao, therefore relying on the imagery of the weft of exchanges. The medicine need not be measured in catties, but in 284 true, resembling the two crescent moons facing each other. 2 times 8 is 16, hence the establishment of 16 liang. Anything less is not in accordance with the hexagrams, and the seasonal symbol is used in one way. Kan and Li, middle son and daughter trigrams, are the medicine. Heaven and earth are the furnace. Thunder and wind, Chun and Sun, are the two trigrams that generate the cycle. But when the talisman is used, Yin Qi transforms into white horse teeth, and Yang Qi transforms into gold. Golden sand enters the 5 internal organs, and the mist disperses like wind and rain. Although there is no external application, the wonder is boundless. There are all methods for achieving longevity and transcending the world. The ultimate path of the elixir of immortality. Every New Year's Day, the primordial sovereign and the 2 real men of the scenery convene the children who have attained Tao. Those who share in this destiny are moved by heaven. When we look at the text, there are a few immediate takeaways. One of them is that there's a lot of talk about yin and yang, and the yin and yang that they talk about are very different from the yin and the yang that they talk about in Western Eging esoterics. You can immediately see that some of the errors that are made in the translation of the I Ching is the unknowns that they have about how the I Ching is used. They only look at it as a text, and as a result of that, things can have different kind of meanings, and they try to fit in the text with what we as Westerners would accept within our framework of ideas. But at the moment, when you look a little bit deeper with this, then you can start seeing, like, okay, when you look at the 10 wings, or if you look at Lao Tzu, or you look at Zhuangzi, or you look at any other thinker from the whole history of the I Ching, then you start noticing, like, oh, there's some really stark differences. And the important thing here is to understand that the alchemical tradition that we are talking about here has a very long history, not just within these texts, but also in the works of Sun Miao, in the works of Zhang Sanfen, in the works of Hua Tou, in the works of Zhang Zongjing, in the works of the Ben Cao, in several alchemical works that you know, or that you might know, or that you might not know. I will do a post about this very soon, because I'm going to talk also about Sun Miao very soon. Some things that I think are valuable to know, because my school also has a legacy from the Sun Pai, the Sun Miao Pai. And so I combine in myself the Sun Miao Pai and the Zhang San Feng Xuan Wu Pai. Then the second part is when they talk about the Dantian, and here it becomes also obvious that the Western esoterics of energy work and stuff is not relevant enough. So besides that is interesting, you see that in the circulation and so on, and when they talk about yin and yang, they talk about things like blood and water and steam and condense, and they talk about ink, and they talk about all kinds of things in these alchemical texts, but they never talk about energy that can represent energy. Then also, what is very important is that when they talk about Jing, they talk about Yin Jing and they talk about Yang Jing. And if you look deeper into the text, and not just this text, but also other alchemical texts, you see that the idea of Jing as essence is a modern fabrication, which has to do with the need to make it fit within Western biological frameworks. And this is partly because in the Qing Dynasty also they tried to reframe Chinese culture, and they were already talking about different kinds of things. And it is true, some aspects of the experience of Yang and Yin come from the lower part of the body, because the Renmai, the collector of the Yin condense, actually sinks all the way into your bladder, and then through the perineum it is filling up the Dumai from the bottom upward. And then in the Mingmen, where the heating takes place from the hidden fire of the kidneys, the water is being steamed up, and then the steam goes up. So the trajectory of the Dumai, where it is warm and steaming, is actually very short compared to the trajectory of the water, because the weight of the water on the front actually pushes the water up on the backside. So if the water on the front is not properly filled, then at that moment, of course, there's not enough pressure for the Yang, so the Yang also will be rarefied. This is also why the exercises are difficult to develop, because if there is any kind of lack in your system, because of, for instance, water turning into damp, then at that moment it will take more time and more effort to get to the point where you actually can get these kind of changes. So these are two major takeaways. When you look further down the text, you see a few more. One that I specifically want to mention because we talked about it before. I am very often talking about the Jing as yin Jing and yang Jing, and then I very often translate the yang Jing as cohering, as an action, and the yin Jing as the physical memory of something. And Jing doesn't say so much in words here, but in the teachings of Tai Chi Chuan, you can see that Jing is the foundation for the development of Jin. Jin is the power with which you make an action, and that power is dependent on the way how you cohere your body. So this is why I use that as a concept. But the translation, the literal translation of the character for Jing actually is refinement. So the way how you refine yourself, and the association with sperm is nowhere visible in the text. And then if you're a woman, where does the Jing come from? Because you don't have sperm. And so that essence part is not valid. Although it is meaningful in that it is essential, and the essential is not the same as an essence. So this is what is very important. And so I prefer to use the word cohering or refinement. And in this text, I translated Jing as refinement because that was the most suitable one. And you can see that the meaning shifts. Like in Chinese, some words can be both a verb and a noun. And I chose for Jing as a verb and not as a noun. But when we talk about the yin Jing, I think about it as an object. So then it becomes body memory, right? And that is located in the kidneys, because the kidneys are the ones that are constructing and reconstructing the body throughout your life. Although I understand why people make this mistake of thinking it should be your sexual fluids or something like this, but in the case of women, then it just still wouldn't fit. And that means that the theory of male and female, especially in tantric practices, for instance, should be too much different than that they actually are, because they're more same. Because as a woman, you first have to overcome a base hindrance, and then it is exactly the same like when you're a man. Same like when you are going through your menopause, you gradually transform into a man biologically or hormonally in perspective to the Taoist practices, and then you go further than that. While as a man, then you go, of course, eventually to another stage. And as a woman, you have to follow also in that same kind of stage. And because that's a long distance in the past, and very often they thought, like, as a woman, you cannot reach that far. But we know better by now. So these are some of the most interesting and effective things to look at this. The relationship with the Jing and the golden flower text, though, is very obvious. Also, when you look at the diagrams of the golden flower, if you look at all the discussions, you cannot avoid that. Also, time measurement, discipline, regularity, the organization of nature and the slowness of nature and the slowness of human development also is essential. And I find that, for instance, back in the way how treatment works. Like, for instance, the body, we know every kind of cell has its own reproduction cycle. And on average, you can say, okay, for most of the body, the turnover of cells is about 3 months. That means that every 3 months, sort of, your body can learn something new because it has renewed part of its cells enough anyway to give you a new direction, like the shape of your bones or the shape of your muscle or the activities of your muscles or the activity of the organelles in your cells. So they all have learned something new. And it means that, for instance, if you do acupuncture, facelift with acupuncture, it takes this amount of months to make sure that the body remembers something so that it can keep on doing that, and it has to be kept alive as a process. And then that is how rejuvenation actually works. It is not about all the chemicals that people ascribe to it. The same for overweight. Overweight works when people are having a little bit of overweight, but the more overweight you have, the longer it takes before the body makes enough blood vessels to retreat the liquids, and therefore also the hunger from the fat cells, because the amount of fat cells is already fixed. When you're born, until you're 6 or 7, your body makes all these fat cells. So clinically, that is important. And in the golden flower text, also the similar kind of way, the same kind of natural process is being discussed over and over again. And because of this natural process being discussed over and over again, you have to go through particular stages, and you will go through particular stages if you do things right. Like, for instance, not in this text, it's not been discussed so much, but in other texts it's clearly discussed, okay, if you don't do Ling body practice, if you don't do the integration of the Shun and the Ling, the awareness and the base substance of the universe that connects everything that is alive with each other, then at that moment, the numinosity, you can say, then at that moment, it is not possible to develop the golden flower, because the light of the luminosity and the awareness of the mind and the blood and the chi and the water, everything comes together to make sure that everything works fine. One of the things that you can see from this text is that it's pretty psychedelic, as I said before. There are many different kind of factors, and there are many different kind of details inside the process. The reason for this is because in Taoism it is being considered that life is very complicated, and you should not simplify that complication, you should just see the pattern within. So at the moment when you accept the complication, eventually, because of the fullness of your practice and the duration of your practice over time, you start having a good understanding of how it actually works. By simplifying things, reducing, reading, studying, not trying to be a scholar, and so forth, you eventually will not attain anything, because you cannot absorb the symbology, you cannot absorb the culture that belongs to it, and therefore also cannot come to understand what it actually means. So you can practice Tai Chi Chuan all you want, but it becomes never Neidan Tai Chi if you do not also study the Golden Flower history or texts. And therefore, the combination of techniques, as I discussed before, are all equally relevant for that purpose. So Tai Chi Chuan on itself is nothing. In a similar kind of fashion, you can practice acupuncture or massage all you want, but without the tantric relationship with these kind of practices, there is no other way to do Chinese medicine in the proper way. So you need the symbology of the internal structures of the body to be able to eventually understand the processes that you're trying to move. The modern TCM is very mechanistic in the sense that it is only using the externals of the acupuncture, but not the internals of the acupuncture. So it is actually doing the yang, but forgetting about the yin. So it doesn't create a foundation, and that means that, of course, like in Western medicine, you continuously need your support act to make sure that you stay healthy and within the expectations of daily life. So these kind of things are all very important. And I think also for Taoist meditation, without these aspects, or when you think that you can self-generate all these kind of things, because people talk about Turan, naturally so, that things will be self-generating because it's in the nature of the universe. No, it is not what it is, because Taoism agrees that the proper context provides the proper results. It also says at the same time that there is so much more that I could say, but the video would just become too long. So you have to wait for the rest. I'm going to do this topic video for many more times in the coming years, because the amount of chapters that I still have to translate is more than the ones that I have translated so far. I've been translating 3 departments. I am finishing the 3rd department, and every department shows some other aspects of the Golden Flower method. By the way, people very often talk in Taoist practice nowadays about transformation. This word transformation, hua, actually means flowering, and now you understand also what golden flower means. It actually indicates golden flowering, and as such, hua doesn't mean transformation, but means flowering. Also, when we talk about Jing, we talk usually about refinement, and we talk about the Jing of the body as the cohering aspects of our body, and that cohering aspects of the body requires refinement. So you talk about 2 different kind of things, and they eventually end up as the form of our body. The interrelationship between concepts within Taoism is very important. For instance, they talk about Tao and qi as being related to each other, but it is not just the regular kind of qi that people always talk about. It's another kind of qi. And when they talk about the relationship between Jing and body, this is something similar, because Jing and body together produce health. So the cohering of the body is health. Then there is a yin Jing and there's a yang Jing. The yin Jing is basically the memory to be able to immediately manifest the coherence of the body and immediately produce the flowering. This is a very important part. This is from the third department. And also when we look at the yang Jing, this is basically the activity of cohering. And without proper Jing, there is no health. So that means without proper cohering of the body, there is no health. In modern TCM, they have been reducing that to a substance because it fits in better with the instrumental theories of modern Western medical science. And although there is a good reason for that, and it doesn't mean that I'm against TCM or that TCM doesn't produce good results, it is not necessarily what is essential about Chinese medicine. Actually, it has been taken out the essence of Chinese medicine to make it adapt to Western medicine, which doesn't make it bad, it just makes it a westernized form of Chinese medicine. And I was not personally interested in that. So if you are more interested in that, just join our program and come study with us.